The Bear, Immortality, and Coffee Talk. This is staying in. Dan, have you seen that news story about that giant goldfish that bloke found?
No.
I've become quite obsessed with it. So this came out on my birthday.
Happy. It doesn't hardly seem fair that for your birthday I don't have the entire choir here to celebrate with you.
No, it's fine. Not a problem at all.
Although Pete kind of shot down it last time round that we weren't able to sing, so we'll do that next time.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But it was like a wonderful gift that the universe gave me on my birthday, where an angler caught one of the world's biggest goldfish, weighing a whopping. Well, let's do this then. So, how heavy do you think this goldfish was?
Well, I have been fishing in the past, so
I've only been sea fishing. I've never fished in a river. I've only ever gone fishing in the sea.
See, I've only ever been river fishing.
Oh wow! Pair us up.
Yeah, so we've got all the fish covered here.
Exactly.
Now, also goldfish. I have had a goldfish as a child. They don't strike me as being particularly big.
No.
I don't know this story, but I'm going to use both of my levels of experience of river fishing and goldfish having, and I'm going to say a 4-pound goldfish, which is a massive goldfish.
That is a big goldfish. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if I've over egged the pudding here.
So your guess is 4 pounds. So, angler catches one of the world's biggest goldfish, weighing a whopping 67 pounds and 4 ounces.
So, yeah, I didn't over-egg it at all.
No. 67 pounds, Dan.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's an impressive land for all you fishermen out there, for you anglers.
So, the gigantic or orange specimens, I'm reading this from theexpressandstyle.com. Other news sources are available. Aptly nicknamed...
But not many were taking this story.
Aptly nicknamed the carrot. That's the nickname of this goldfish. Even though I think I've not had a carrot that's 67 pounds.
I mean, to be fair, they didn't... I don't think they spent too long thinking of the name. They looked at the fish, thought it was orange, and went with carrot. I mean, there's not been much kind of workshopping gone into that name, has it?
No, not really. And it's bright orange. So... Yeah. The carrot is believed to be over 20 years old and was put in a lake at a fishery in France. But presumably this fishery is next to some kind of nuclear power plant.
Yeah, this is next to a toxic waste dump.
It is like Blinky the three-eyed fish from The Simpsons, but
yeah,
because I remember, I don't know if this is true or not, that story that a goldfish grows to match the shape of the size of its surroundings.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Because I remember as a kid, you'd hear this apocryphal story that, oh yeah, a kid went on holiday and they left its goldfish in the bath and it came back and it filled the bath.
Well, I don't think that's quite true. I don't think they kind of go up and down sizes depending on kind of the daily tank that they find themselves in.
And also as well the fact that it was like why just a goldfish in that regard? Why not any other fish? So yes, that made me laugh. So yes, I had a very nice birthday. It was lovely. I got some lovely gifts. Again, you lot.
What'd you get?
Did fantastic work. Well, I'm going to start with what you got me, which was just amazing. So you got me a copy of Love Letter, which is probably one of my favourites card games in the world. I don't know if I need to explain what Love Letter is. It's in every single bookshop pretty much. It's one of the most famous card games.
So that's the one with the cards in the little bag, isn't it?
That's it, yeah. And it kind of kicked off a relatively short-lived genre of gaming called the micro game, where, as you say, you've got a small deck of cards, and the whole premise behind the game is that you are trying to find out who is sending these secret notes to the princess. I love the card game. I love it to pieces. I've taken that game all over the world with me, and as a consequence, I have lost a card and other cards have become perished. So I was desperate to get a new copy of it. And it's one of those perfect gifts where, yeah, I could get it for myself, but yeah. So it was really lovely to get it as a gift. You also got me a copy of the Silmarillion, which I think is an illustrated version of it, isn't it?
Yes, it was a version that we actually discussed, me and you.
Because you and I are the Tolkien white guys amongst the...
I was just about to make that exact same joke.
Staying in crew. Like you and I, like Sam watches the films, loves the films.
Yeah, he claims to dabble, but
yeah,
he's not in it.
You and I are the more hardcore of the lot. Like, we'll never forget it down that journey you and I made from Bag End to Mordor in the virtual version of the Lord of the Rings game we played once years ago.
Yeah.
We also, when we were really heavy into Minecraft, you and I went and looked and actually explored in person. What do I mean by that? But we actually explored like famous structures in the game that people have built in Minecraft at scale, which is amazing. And you and I also really loved the Rings of Power TV series as well, which we've spoken about also on the pod. So yeah, to get the Silmarillion when I'm really kind of getting back into Lord of the Rings, it's just a real gift for me. So that's beautiful, and it's also, it looks like the original cover of how it was published, which is also great. So it looks like, you know, a first edition, which is superb. I am very much a person who judges a book by its cover when it's literally a book, because I like there's something that kind of haptic feedback. It enriches my experience of it, really, very, very much so, really. But you also got me another book, which was a book I'd never heard of before, but I was flicking through it yesterday, and I'm thinking this is a perfect book for me. It's called A Therapeutic Atlas, and Destinations to Inspire and Enchant. And from what I can gather from it, it's like it's taking you through some kind of like major kind of locations on the planet that are worth seeing, but for each one it gives you like a really interesting kind of essay about why it is worth experiencing. So unlike, say, a typical travel book, or say even something like A Lonely Planet, which is very functional, it's like, okay, you know, best places to eat are here, this is the kind of budget you need to have for doing this, this and this, you should stay here in this particular area, it's pretty cool. This is very much more philosophical, and it's split into sections which kind of typify that, really. So I was looking at a section yesterday, which was, I think, something like Wandering in the Mind. I was like, oh my word, this is great.
It's like a book made for you.
Yeah, it speaks to me in terms of my love of travel and stuff, but also in terms of my my day job as an academic and the kind of stuff I'm researching and writing about. So a beautiful, beautiful series of gifts. So thank you very much.
Well, I will take all the credit.
You should do. Well, I can't hear Sam or Pete, so it must
exactly.
Be...
The other two haven't bothered to show up for your birthday show, so I will take all that credit.
So I know what Pete's doing right now. Pete's giving a talk as part of a panel.
That's what he
Pete's
says.
Doing that. Now, Sam, I spoke to Sam literally about half an hour ago on the phone, because Sam has been very, very unwell.
Don't give them excuses.
But he was like, oh,
Chris.
well, I can make the recording. I said, no, mate, I know you're on the recording. You're not well. You've had flu. Like, he sent us a text this morning, didn't he, saying I've barely been able to look at the television. I've not been able to eat and things. So, you know, I hope he's okay and things. Because we're supposed to go to the cinema tomorrow to see The Glass Onion, the new Knives Out sequel.
Ah, yes.
And he said, look, if I'm ill, his partner Lisa will go instead. So either way, it's going to be a great night. I like the fact that his wife is also his understudy, who kind of goes to engagements that he can't make. But in terms of other gifts, I don't want to linger too long. I got a really good gift that would appeal to you, Dan.
Ooh.
So my partner got me a map, and it's a map of the area we live in, like the county I live in the UK. But it's from an artist who takes maps of who takes like the location, but he does it up like it's a Tolkien map.
Oh,
it is phenomenal. So apparently, I was talking about it. I said, "How did you find?" He said, "Well, on their on the Facebook page for, I don't know, the area we live in, the artist said, look, I'm doing a map for this area. Can you recommend good landmarks and anything about them?" So it's not just, okay, this is here. He's done little drawings like Tolkien did, like a little dragons and stuff and things. So instantaneously, it's like I live in Middle Earth. And I go, I want to go out and explore this. So where Sam lives, Sam's on there. So it's great. So when I go to Sam now, when I drive, it's not like I'm driving up the M6 to Sam. It's like I'm going on a quest to find
We need
Sam.
to find somehow, get this loaded up into your sat-nav. So you'll be sat in your car following the Middle Earth map all the way to Sam's.
That's it. And I'll have Kate Blanchett narrate, like, you know, Galadriel or Andy Serkis, actually. We've spoken about that at length. But yeah, it was an amazing birthday. Thank you again.
Good. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Glad you had a good time. Would you say you had a relaxing birthday?
Yeah, it was super chill. I mean, I was at work, but work is work. It's nice and chill at work. Busy, but productively busy. It's a bit miserable weather-wise at the moment. But yeah, I had a relaxing birthday. It was really nice, actually. It was really chill.
And would you say that you're particularly relaxed in general at the moment?
Oh yeah, definitely. I try to be pretty chilled.
Would you like to change that? Because if you do, I have a TV show for you to watch, which will absolutely get you on kind of tension ratcheted up 1,000%.
Okay, I'm not very good with tension. Famously, I played the last level of The Last of Us with whiskey in my hand.
Okay, it's not quite end of Last of Us tension,
Right.
But I've been watching The Bear on Disney Plus.
The Bear?
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, so full disclaimer, listener, we have a Google Drive, a Google Doc in which we log stuff we're going to talk about in the pod. And I saw you put The Bear down. I thought this was a kids show.
No, it's not. I mean, to be fair, I do watch a lot of kids shows.
Yeah. Many
of them that do contain bears. So you were using kind of logic to get there. But no, this is a show
you
called...
have children. It's worth saying for new listeners, you do have children. Yeah.
Yes, that is important. Yeah. That's not the peek behind the curtain I was talking about. That I just watch kids TV by myself.
Right. So I know, Dan, that you pride yourself on liking to watch stuff that is critically acclaimed. So I presume you heard about this somewhere in some top 10 list.
I like to either watch stuff that is kind of the geek culture stuff that's going to wash over me. It's going to be entertaining. The likes of the Marvel stuff, I do that because I'm not having to invest as much in that. If I'm not watching that, I like to spend my time, because I have so little of it, watching programs, watching films and stuff that are going to do something for me. They're going to as you say, critically acclaimed, or just are doing something different and interesting and actually are worth my time. I don't want to find myself halfway through a series and think, I've just wasted a bit of time here. So this is a show that I saw. I saw a review of it in The Guardian, and then I saw in a few different places. I saw some reviews of it, and they was getting kind of fantastic reviews. But they're all talking about kind of how intense it is as a show. So this is a drama. It's kind of like black comedy. There is absolutely comedic elements to it, but it's kind of a black comedy drama. And the premise is there's a character called Carmen, played by Jeremy Allen White, who I've not really seen in anything before. He was in the American version of Shameless, though. I've never watched that show, but I know he was in that. So people, if they've watched, so they may recognise him in that. And he plays Carmi, who is a kind of like young but kind of top of his game chef who was working in literally the best restaurant in the world, in this restaurant in New York, which was fine dining to the extreme. But this show finds him, following the death of his brother, he has taken over his brother's sandwich shop in Chicago, which on the face of it sounds like the setup for a sitcom. Kind of like highfalutin chef,
fish out of water,
works in a sandwich shop.
Yeah.
But actually what it is an incredibly intense, raw kind of drama around him trying to kind of pull this sandwich shop kind of up off the ground. You get the sense it's a sandwich restaurant or sandwich deli that perhaps has been getting the money in, but that's more out of people coming out of habit as opposed to they are the best sandwiches in town. There's a lot of rough edges. The kind of all the staff there are very set in their ways. They worked by a system, but it's not a particularly well-run system. And he's coming in as this chef working in the best restaurants, wanting to implement a system, wanting to improve the place. And it's kind of about him working his way through his grief of losing his brother. And it kind of, that grief is kind of represented through the restaurant. So him trying to look at the restaurant saying, I can really make this work. The restaurant is heavily in debt. The restaurant owes money to kind of gangsters and stuff. And he's having to deal with all this stuff. But the hook, the selling point of this is the fact that it feels like, have you ever worked in a kitchen?
Yes, I've worked in a kitchen. I've also, I've worked in a restaurant, worked behind the bar. Yep.
So working in a kitchen, have you like in a was that like in a chef environment, or was it just as a waiter?
Oh no, I was washing up, but I would say that you could feel the stress just coming off in waves.
It's a common thing to just know that like working in a kitchen is very, very stressful. I worked as a waiter, which occasionally had to kind of cover the desserts and stuff. So I spent a bit of time in the kitchen, but never properly in the kitchen.
So hang on, Dan. Sorry. I'm really interested when you said you had to cover desserts. Can you just walk me through what that means?
I use the term desserts in very loosely. I mean, they were
Angel
desserts,
delight.
but not that loosely. I was working as a waiter, and it was the job of one of the waiters each night. They would be on desserts. So
okay, right.
I don't know why they were very easy to make.
And was that a particular
menu,
role that you fought for, or would you draw straws for it?
I'll be honest with you, I quite enjoyed it. I really did. Like it would be like ice cream sundae or chocolate brownie sundae or an apple pie and all of this stuff. I wasn't making them. I was preparing them. They were made by other people, and then I'd be reheating and serving them, and I'd get the strawberry and I'd slice it in a particular way and put some cream and a sprinkle of icing sugar or chocolate just to make just the presentation was. Yeah, or do a creme brulee and stuff like that. That was probably one of the only ones that I did
with a blowtorch.
So getting the blowtorch and melting the kind of the brown sugar, and so that was the extent of the desserts. But obviously, I was in the kitchen doing that. I wasn't out front doing
taking full credit.
So then, when I say covering desserts, that's the extent. That
right. Okay. Pray continue.
Yeah. So I have a tiny amount of experience in that. But as that, I wouldn't say I'd feel that stress that you would typically associate with working as a chef in a kitchen. But what I was saying in terms of what The Bear does is it captures, especially in the first episode, and I think it's been done specifically that way. That first episode is each episode is 30 minutes. Like, it's not long episodes. I love the fact that you're starting to get more and more shows now that they're just 30 minutes. You
very
look
tight.
at this, She-Hulk was 30 minutes. Only Murders in the Building is 30 minutes. We were so used to having shows that are an hour or more long. Like Stranger Things, I love Stranger Things. The finale of the last series was 2.5 hours long. It was ridiculous. Like certain things. So having these short 30-minute episodes is fantastic. And this first episode is exhausting. But what's great about it is it just throws you into this kitchen, and it's constantly people talking over each other, moving around, talking, shouting across the kitchen, all this stuff. This is how you're introduced to the characters. You're introduced to the kitchen through the language of the kitchen. Like you've got them when they're walking behind people, they're shouting behind. If they're coming around a corner, they're shouting corner. So that's the language that they're using for each other. It's never explained, because you don't really need to explain it once you've seen it in kind of action. And as you watch that first episode, it is absolutely relentless. So I finished the first episode, and you kind of sit back and you're going to go, wow, that was something. And then further episodes, they still have the tension, but they do drop down a little bit because they allow you to have a bit more character work and stuff like that. But as a show, that rawness, that intensity is kind of like nothing I've seen in a long, long time. It feels a lot of the time almost improvised and so naturalistic, the way it's done, the way you've got people talking over each other and kind of moving around in these really tight spaces, really claustrophobic environment. It starts on 11 and it just stays there. Like, it doesn't let up. And as a result, you are sitting there thinking, this kind of wave is just hitting me. And fortunately for me, it just took me with it because the characters were great. You've got a character called Sydney who comes in, who's kind of very talented but very young and wants to is really well trained, but wants to work in this place. This is where her dad used to come and stuff like that. And she says to Kami, it's like, I know who you are. I know where you worked. I know that you were one of the best chefs in the country. Like, why are you here? And his response is just, I'm making sandwiches. Like, that, this is his life now because he's taken it over from his brother who has died, and he's dealing with that through the restaurant and through the people who work there because they were a family. Like the guy who, like the general manager, type thing, was the best friend of Michael, the previous owner, and all the rest of the chefs all were a family together. And so trying to get those dynamics and try to see him try and change what the restaurant is and what it can become, and seeing how people get inspired about different parts of their work and how they can improve and how they can see this thing that they've dedicated their lives to as well come together. I've not quite finished the series yet, and what I really want is it all just to work out great, but I just don't think it will, because it's been on the edge the entire time.
Yeah.
They have set up they have commissioned a second series of it, which I was kind of disappointed about, because I just want to see this story play out, and I don't know how much, having not finished it, I don't know how much give there is to continue the story onwards. So it'd be interesting to see how they try and close this out. But it is like nothing I've seen in a long, long time. Have you ever seen the film Once? It's a really super low budget film. It's a musical.
I know. It got tons of plaudits, and they actually they actually made a stage version of it, didn't they?
They made a stage. There is now a stage version of it.
It's always been on my to watch list.
Yeah, so Once, I can't, off the top of my head, I don't know the director. It stars Glenn Hazard, I think it was, who I knew from The Commitments, which is one of my favourite films.
I was in a film with someone in The Commitments.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Who?
Oh, what's her name? Brona Gallagher.
Oh, yeah, Brona Gallagher. She's done loads of things.
Yeah.
She's done loads of things.
Very nice person. Sorry, pray continue.
It's always nice to hear. But yeah, so that was Glenn Hansard, who had done The Commitments and did this. And this is a super low budget film, and he plays like this busker. And it's done with handheld cameras, and it looks like handheld cameras. There's no getting away from the fact that they've done it on a absolute shoestring. But it's beautiful. From the music is fantastic. But the point I'm making is it's not as low budget, but I was getting similar feels from The Bear, that kind of real rawness of the footage. There are certain scenes, like I remember that there's one scene, and it's literally just the character of Carmi on the beach. She's kind of looking out to sea, but the use of the lighting and the way the camera lingers and the texture of the kind of the visuals, you get that feeling that it's really kind of low budget and so kind of gripping and raw. And it's as I say, it's not something you kind of see a lot of. It's just been fantastic and a real kind of surprise to kind of come out of nowhere. And anything I'm saying here is being picked up on kind of reviews and stuff as well. And everyone talks about the intensity of it and how you could watch it all the way through, but you'd kind of have to go to sleep afterwards because you'd be so exhausted. I've been watching it 1 or 2 episodes at a time.
I mean, that's the thing for me, like, and maybe this says something about me, but after a day's work, sitting down and then engaging with something that's so intense, albeit for a very short dose of about 30 minutes. Do you get to an end of an episode and are you like, oh, okay, thankfully I've got that release now. I can go to bed, or I need to watch something else because I'm a bit too wired? Or is it the case of like, oh gosh, it's over. Oh, I should watch the next one now. I need to ride this wave still. I need to keep that momentum going.
There's probably elements of both, really.
Okay.
Like that first episode is unique in the sense of that intensity does not let up in that episode, because it's setting up everything about the series. It's setting up what it's like to be in a kitchen. It's setting up the characters. It's setting up the dynamics and the relationships, and the fact that the restaurant is not a functioning kitchen at the start of it. And that's why it's intense. After that, you maintain elements of that, but because the kitchen begins to function better, because different people come to the fore, people start to learn, and people start to think, oh, actually, yes, what I'm being taught to do and work is actually working. Because of that, the intensity then drops a little bit, and you do have ebbs and flows, and you are able to take moments and just have quiet moments for character development and stuff. And that then means it gets a lot easier to kind of ride that wave, as you say.
And how sophisticated are these sandwiches? Are they just chip butties, or?
Well, I mean, they are. I mean, they're fancy sandwiches. The restaurant's called the Beef. The Beef. I think it's the Beef in the land of Chicagoland or something like that. And so they're kind of cooked beef sandwiches with kind of the fried onions and stuff like that. And obviously, they're probably famous in the area. But the sense you get isn't the fact of people are kind of queuing for miles around. The people come there because that's the sandwich shop that they go to. But yeah, it's kind of like they're cooking big joints of beef to make the beef sandwiches and all that stuff. And they do have other meals and stuff. And one of the young girl who joins, she wants to change the menu. She wants to introduce more things. She wants to bring in a risotto and stuff like that. And they are trying
a risotto sandwich.
Not that one's not in a sandwich.
Okay.
That one's a risotto sandwich does not make the cut.
What would be the most inappropriate meal to have in a sandwich? But between two slices of bread or in a wrap, say, for example.
I mean, soup jumps to mind.
I know it does, but I don't want to.
But I feel like that's too easy.
Or maybe let's rephrase this. Sorry, a meal that would work, but it still feels wrong. So it's a meal. I'm talking about a meal now.
I mean, there's the full roast dinner, which feels wrong, but is absolutely delicious. And every time I have a roast dinner later that night, I will then put all components of that dinner into a sandwich. Sometimes with a little bit of gravy as well. Beat that.
Beat a full roast dinner between two slices of bread.
Yeah.
Are you buttering the bread at all, or is it just going in?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
like heathen.
Gosh.
And then also it depends on what the meat is. So if I'm having beef, I might have a bit of mustard. If I'm having lamb, I'll have a little bit of mint in there as well. You've got to have all the components there. You've got to have the potato. Got to have some of the veg. Delicious.
I've got it down.
Okay, what is it?
I reckon a whole roast chicken.
A whole roast. Okay. Hang on a minute. So when you say a whole roast chicken,
yep,
is the chicken carved?
No.
Okay, then we have problems here because you can't eat the bones. You would choke.
It's fiddly, I know. Nobody's denying it's fiddly.
Oh, so as you're eating, you're spitting out bones.
Yep.
I mean, it's a decision. It's not. It doesn't sound particularly enjoyable. It just sounds like a really overly filled chicken sandwich with additional problems.
Did you have a stressful day yesterday, Dan?
I didn't have a stressful day yesterday.
I just want to recommend something that will calm you down and chill you out a bit.
Oh, okay. So we've jazzed us up with the bear.
Yeah.
And now we're going to mellow out.
You've got to take the edge off it somehow.
Yeah.
I want to introduce you to a game, and it's interesting actually because there's a double reason for this. Is I want to talk about a game that I got last year for Secret Santa, which is a game called Coffee Talk, and I got it for my Nintendo Switch. And thank you, Santa, once again. I said I'd talk about it, and here I am a year later talking about it. Coffee Talk, which is a visual novel. Have you ever played a visual novel, Dan?
I don't think so.
Always played the right word or read a visual novel, I don't know.
I don't think so.
It's a genre that Pete got me into, because I'd never heard of it really until about a year and a half or so ago, where ostensibly there's a degree of interactivity there, in the same way that when you read a book, there's interactivity. I turn a page, for example. And you get different degrees of interactivity with a visual novel. Sometimes it is literally just clicking through dialogue, and that's it. And there is most of Coffee Talk is you just clicking through whilst people are talking. But there's also some little bits of gaminess as well in this, which I'll talk about. But essentially, you're a barista in a fictional version of Seattle. It's like a fantasy version of Seattle, like modern day 21st century Seattle, but it's a world in which there are elves, werewolves, vampires, dwarves, orcs, all this kind of stuff really. And the only perspective you have in the game is as a barista. And you and I have both worked behind the bar You had that experience. And what Coffee Talk gives me is that wonderful experience sometimes when you're working behind the bar and it's not too busy and you're just able just to chat to locals, but equally also, like, I can't quite phrase what this is like, but sometimes locals will be sat at the bar just chatting openly to each other. They're not like chatting in a very private manner. They're chatting openly to each other, and you're kind of part of the conversation, but you're also not. Because, someone at some point may call you away to serve a table, or somebody may arrive at, the other end of the bar and you need to pull them a pint or something. So you've kind of got this really interesting perspective as the barista. And you don't choose when you interject into those conversations. It's chosen for you. But at the very beginning of the game, you put your name in, and that's your name, because everything's in text language. Nobody says anything really. And you're in this bar, this cafe, essentially, a coffee bar, and it's the only one open after hours. So you get these really interesting people coming in. There's Freya, who is a fairy, who works in a newspaper but is writing a novel, and they've got writer's block. They don't know what to write, and then they get an idea about writing stories about the people that are in this coffee shop. So you chat to them, and at the moment I played a scene today on the train coming back from Manchester where I just watched a vampire who's friends with a werewolf talking about how they met 60 years ago or so, and just it tackles some quite relatively grown-up adult issues, these conversations, but it's kind of told in chapters, and the chapter is just a shift, and the shift is pretty short. They come in, they say, "Hey Chris, how you doing? Did you manage to solve that issue you had in the end?" I say, "Oh yeah, yada yada yada." I serve them a drink, they leave, and then the next day other guests, recurring customers will come back, and I see what happened to them last time when I saw them, and I fill in the gap. So it's almost like when you're working in a pub, when you've got the locals coming in, it's like the next episode of your TV series is starting. It's like, "Oh, okay, so what did you get up to last time I saw you?" And you kind of chat to them. That's one thing I loved about working in a local pub, was just having a window in people's worlds without being too intrusive, but also not so wholly invested in it. And the cool thing for me, which I never got to experience in my job in the restaurant or the pub I worked in, was I only really pulled pints and made drinks. I never had to go at the coffee machine, because it wasn't a really sophisticated coffee machine. I don't drink coffee. I love the smell of coffee, but coffee culture is alien to me, but I'm fascinated by it. In Coffee Talk, you make the drinks. So they say, "Oh, can you get me an espresso?" I was like, "Oh, that's easy." And the screen opens up and you go, "Okay." And you've got your ingredient shelf in front of you. You go, "Okay, my base is going to be coffee." If it's an espresso, it's pretty much coffee, coffee, coffee. And I serve that. And as you're picking the ingredients, it tells you, there's this slide bar that says, "Okay, that's very bitter what you've picked there, that selection and so forth. Or that's going to be quite warm. Or that's going to be quite cool. Or that's going to be quite sweet." Because sometimes a customer will say, "Oh, just give me something." I was about to say bitter and sweet then, but what I mean is give me something warm but sweet. And you go, "Okay." And then you just say, "I'm just taking stuff off shelves again. Yeah, let's make this." And you serve it to them, and it's just you slide the cup towards them. You can go, "What are they going to think of this? What are they going to think of this?" And you watch them sip it, and you hear, and they go, "Oh, that's nice." Or you haven't got that quite right yet. And you go, "Oh, okay, damn, what are they going to think of me now?"
So is there a scoring element to that then?
No, not at all. It doesn't matter at all, but it's me feeling as the barista, "Oh, I've let them down." It's like when, you pull a pint, you serve, and you watch it settle, and the head's like an inch thick, and you're like, "Oh God, I'm real sorry, I'm really embarrassed. I'll take that back. I'll top that up for you. Sorry about that." Sometimes they don't care, or sometimes they say, "Oh, have you got a float to put in that?" But they don't mind. So it's that lovely feeling. And as you're kind of doing exotic drinks, you build this kind of catalogue of drinks that you kind of unlock that you can now do. And on loading screens between chapters, it will highlight, types of tea or coffee that I'd never heard of before, like Russian tea. I'd never heard of that. Or a green tea latte. I've forgotten I had one of those when I was in Budapest.
I had chai tea for the first time the other day.
The first time you had chai, what did you think of it?
I went to I was in Birmingham for the weekend, and for breakfast, and me and my wife went to, there's an Indian restaurant called Dishoom, and it's beautiful restaurant, beautiful food. We went for breakfast, and personally, I'm someone who I don't like to. If I'm not sure if I'm gonna like something, I just won't order it because I don't like that thing of buying something and not liking it, and then I feel obligated to drink it or eat it, and then so I just avoid it. And so this was on the menu, chai tea, and I was kind of like, oh,
live a little.
Part of me, I just want breakfast tea, even though I'm in this like beautiful Indian restaurant. I just want English breakfast tea. But I mean, eventually I went for it, and it arrived, and I was like, oh, I'm really not sure about this. And I sipped it, and I was like, this is delicious.
Yeah.
And I was drinking it, and then like I got to the bottom, and the guy came over and topped it back up again. And I was like, thank God I like this, because if it had been the other way around and I hadn't liked it, I would have still probably drank it because I'd have felt guilty.
Yeah.
I'd have drunk it all the way through. I'd have struggled through it, and then he'd have topped it up again, and I'd have wanted to die. But it was absolutely delicious. Yeah, I've just never had it before.
So nice, aromatic, quite sweet. It's lovely, lovely.
Yeah, it's almost like hot chocolate.
Yeah, so I'm discovering all these drinks in here, and obviously it's gamified to an extent that every drink I seem to serve has 3 ingredients in it. A base, a primary, and a secondary. It's not necessarily like that in real life, but actually, some of the components are quite similar. So, and I feel like I'm not just being voyeuristic on these people's lives. I'm kind of providing a service. Like, here's your drink, and as they sip, they start to talk, and it's lovely to be a fly on a wall, particularly when you're watching them chat to each other as they're meeting each other and chatting. These locals. So,
do you get to, when you are that fly on the wall, are you able to say Freya had come to the counter to order something, are you able to kind of stay with Freya, maybe serve other people, but stay with Freya so you can hear more of her conversation? If you're interested in what's happening to her, you focus in on her, and then you can maybe pick someone else up another day, but for that entire shift, you can listen to her story.
So the way it works is I stay rooted to the spot, and I only encounter those who come and sit at the table. So sometimes Freya will say...
The game chooses for you.
So sometimes Freya will say, look, I need to get some writing done. I'll be back in a moment. Generally, Freya's there all the time. She's always... because she kind of comes here to work.
So is it like a novel in the sense of, like, you don't have any effect really on the outcomes?
No, not really.
With the conversation... Yeah. Through the conversation, are you able to affect that relationship in any way, or are you just an observer?
Just an observer. So sometimes I'll get a drink wrong, but it won't have any bearing, really. They'll just say, oh, you haven't got it quite right there. And then it's just me going, oh, no, man, that sucks. But yeah, like I go to get into bed at night. I boot up my Nintendo Switch because I think the handheld is the best dynamic for this. You can play this game on like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and Mac OS and Windows, but I think handheld is where it's at because I sit in bed and I start my shift, which is a night shift in the game, and it's great. And I think I love these kinds of games because, like, one of the problems with lots of kind of game studies scholarship in particular, that games had to have something that was interactive, that it wasn't a game unless you could win, or there was a win state, or you were playing it, there was a rules that you followed and you could change the outcomes of it. Whereas actually nowadays a lot of scholarship is recognizing the fact that a gamer can kind of create for themselves their own rules, their own ways of navigating it. So for me, I feel like I'm losing if I'm not getting the drink right for the punter, in the same way that, like, when I work behind the bar, I was like, oh, sorry, I put a bit too much tonic in that gin, or oh, sorry, I forgot to put the blackcurrant in your pint of Guinness, which was a really quite common drink when I was behind the bar. Yeah, it's a really lovely game that I play in little installments like a novel. I'll just do a chapter of this, and it's super chill.
Do we have a genre of game of like bedtime, go to sleep games? Do we have that genre already?
I can add to that, definitely. So I can recommend Neo Cab, which was very similar, where in a kind of a futuristic world, I'm a cab driver, and every night I'd start my shift and I'd sit in bed and start my shift and I'd talk to people in the back of my cab. That was great. But Neo Cab was different in the sense I could choose my outcome, so it did kind of change things. Kentucky Route Zero, which I spoke about in a previous episode of the pod, because that game is like it's almost like one gigantic dream sequence. It works best to play it at night when you're just on the cusp of falling asleep, because there are bits of that game where I'm not sure if I dreamt it or not. And it is probably one of my favourite games of all time. It's a knockout game. There's a few out there, definitely, because I think games companies are getting quite savvy. I'm not saying that Coffee Talk was designed to be played before you go to bed. But it's nice to know there are genres of games out there which, for people who can't commit to long stretches, that aren't just, your one and done mobiles, which we kind of repeat, which we've spoken about at length before. Yeah. It's nice to play something that has a kind of a longer arc, but still feels like I can play it in small chunks.
Yeah, I think that's a thing. By the sounds of it, with that, the mechanics of the game are simple enough that you can play it quickly and easily at bedtime, but you are getting enough out of it so you feel like you're getting a full gaming experience. It's not like with some mobile games where, as you say, it's like a one and done. You don't feel like you'll enjoy the experience with it, but you don't feel like you're getting a full gaming experience like you would on a big console game and stuff like that, where you do feel like you've got your money's worth. It just kind of feels like it's a token thing. I've done it for a couple of minutes. It's nice to have a game that, yes, you only play in short chunks, but when you put all those chunks together, you feel like there's an entire kind of experience there.
For those in particular who want to get the sensation of playing a game and completing a game without having to commit to something that is so intense or so complicated that if you take a pause from it for a week or so, it's like you're starting again from scratch. This isn't it.
I've been playing actually one other game which fits pretty much the bill that you've just given for Coffee Talk quite nicely. I wasn't going to talk about it yet because I've only recently started playing it. But as we're down a man tonight, I thought I'll throw this into the mix as well. Are you familiar with Sam Barlow? Game designer.
Hang on. Now, did they do Her Story?
Yes, Sam Barlow did Her Story.
Right.
Her Story and Telling Lies, I think, is another one.
So Her Story is a phenomenal game.
Well, I have been playing the new game from Sam Barlow.
Have you? What are you playing it on?
Well, this is a game called Immortality. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of Immortality. It's had rave reviews, this has.
Yeah, so I've been playing Immortality. Similarly, I saw a review for it a while back. It came out on Windows and Xbox in August. But when it came out, there was talk of it coming out on iOS and Android. I was like, okay, brilliant. I'll get it on there. I couldn't find it, and it wasn't coming out, and there was delays. It's just recently come out, but it's come out on Netflix because Netflix have their games division.
Oh yes, of course.
So they've got a games division, and I think they are because it's not kind of commonly used really. I think it's something like 2% of Netflix users are using games on a regular basis. However, I think they are starting to put more money into it. So, for example, Oxenfree recently came onto it as well. So that I can play that on there as well. But the talk was that Immortality was coming onto Netflix. So I can't play it any other way. I can't play it on Windows or Xbox. So I've been waiting for it to land. And it's literally been kind of like every couple of days I'm checking this thing because I saw the reviews for it and it looked amazing. I'm checking Netflix time and time again, and it was never coming up. And then the other day I just clicked onto it, and there it was. There was no parade, no serenade. It was just sitting there in the list. I was like, okay, here we go. So Immortality is similar to the likes of Her Story and Telling Lies. It's kind of a mystery, interactive fiction using live action film to kind of tell a story and tell a mystery. Developed by Mermaid, is Sam Barlow's kind of development company, and it's a quite. I mean, if you've played the likes of Her Story and Telling Lies, you'll know the gist of how the game plays. If you haven't played them, Immortality, you have a mystery to solve, and in order to solve that mystery, you have to look through kind of film clips and search through them, and you can kind of try and understand the mystery that's being played out. And the narrative of this story is that back in 1968, I think it starts off, there is a young starlet called Marissa Marcel who is hired as an actress in a film called Ambrosio. And the story that we are told is that this actress appears in 3 films over a 30-year period. None of the films are released, and she is now missing, and she is thought to be a recluse. And that's what you get from the premise in terms of the synopsis, if you want. You're not really told that at the start.
Colour me intrigued.
Yeah, you're not really told that at the start of the game, but if you know anything about the game, if you've done any reading, that's kind of the information that you have. So I was playing it on iPad. You could play it on the iPhone. I don't really know how well that would work, because it works quite nicely on the bigger screen. To our points of talking about it, how it goes, games that go well at bedtime, I've been playing it just before I go to bed. Me and my wife, when we go to bed...
I was about to say, this sounds like something your wife would love.
Yeah, so we've been just playing through it. So the way the game actually plays is you literally start off with a film clip, and then you can play it, you can pause it, you can scrub left, scrub right, so backwards, forwards, go through everything you need to do. And then at any point you can zoom in either on a face or an object, and it will zoom into it, and then it'll take what you've zoomed into. So for example, I think that I might zoom into the actress's face, and then it will take me to a different clip also containing her face, and then it'll show me that clip. And then I could zoom into something in there, and it takes me to another clip.
So it's like her story with search words, isn't it? In that regard, to a degree.
Kind of, yeah. It's very much you, because it's not just obviously her. Everything in different scenes will find something. So with a different actor, or it might be a bottle on the side. If you zoom on into the bottle, then it'll take you to a different scene with a bottle, and then you can play that scene forward and backwards. What I would say, and is to know this up front, because obviously if you already have Netflix, then you can get this kind of free of charge, because it's part of your subscription. If you want to buy it on Steam, I think it's actually 25% off at the moment on Steam, so it's about £11 or something, or on Xbox. It's important to know that the content is very adult orientated. There is kind of drug use and nudity and language, all the things that you would associate with kind of adult content. This is in there, and it does have a disclaimer at the start, and it does talk about the fact that there is adult content, and there are lots of notes about that. So going in, it's important that people know actually what it is.
Be careful what you zoom in on.
Well, exactly, yeah, but it doesn't shy away from any of that stuff. But some of it, I'm not a huge fan sometimes of, kind of feels almost gratuitous, but narrative decisions are what they are. You kind of go with the story that they're trying to tell. What's really impressive is just the absolute amount of content that there is there. So there are clips from the 3 films that she is in of kind of, these are the rushes that has been filmed on the day. There are outtakes outside of kind of the calling the action, calling cut. There are videos of line readings. There are interviews with actresses. There is home movies. So much content that you can cut between. And obviously, every little bit, you're getting a little bit more information, both in terms of the story of the films, but also the actors and a bit of kind of character work behind that. The content never changes in terms of kind of, if you go back to a scene, it's never changed. However, because you're not given all the content in order, you might see, for example, this happened like right at the start for me. Like I think like the second clip I saw is an interview that the actress Marissa Marcel does with this on this late night talk show with this kind of cheesy talk show host, talking about the first film that she's done, which is Ambrosio, and how that it was her first job, and they kind of wanted to cast an unknown, and 20,000 girls auditioned for the role, and she got it, and she's never done any acting before. But talking about the fact that there is nudity in this film, and talking about her new film and how that's different, and all these different bits and pieces. And so you watch that, and I'd say that was like the second clip I saw. So I kind of, all right, then I'll have a look at that. And I zoomed in on her face to see, because obviously I knew she was the main character. And it took me on a kind of a rabbit hole of different things. And I ended up finding out loads of clips from that first film, Ambrosio. So then I looked back and I watched that same interview again. As I say, it hasn't changed at all. However, I now know all about this film that she's talking about. And so the context in which I'm watching it suddenly becomes a lot different. And I understand a lot more. And I've seen scenes where she doesn't feel comfortable and she's doing stuff, or there's been arguments or something. And obviously that then suddenly gives you all this backstory and understanding. Now, I'm finding it so fascinating because I don't understand where it's going, really. I know there is a sense of mystery of a recluse and someone's gone missing, but I don't really know why or how that's happened. There is a sense of, I mean, I'd say this could be me just putting it onto it, a sense almost of supernatural elements.
Interesting. Yeah, I get that vibe from looking at like lots of the advertisement kind of pertaining to this. It does feel kind of there's a kind of a supernaturally kind of creepy kind of quality to its aesthetic. This is from just looking in terms of how it's marketing, but absolutely entrancing by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you can fall down a rabbit hole of just searching at like one actor. And like I was playing it last night, and there's an actress, one of the supporting actors in one of the films, and like I stumbled across a scene which is her. She's sitting in a church, watching a sermon, and the camera just stays on her face, and it just watches her reactions. And the scene goes for a good 5 minutes, and I watched the entire 5 minutes just watching how it changes. And then right at the end, like you hear them call cut, and you hear the director kind of say, "Let's do it again. This time, maybe she'll hold herself together." And that's because during the scene she started to cry a bit. And so when you're watching, you think, okay, well that's her direction and stuff. But when you get to the end, you find out actually no, she wasn't meant to be crying. So now I'm thinking, well, why is she crying? What's the emotion there? Now I'm digging into this supporting actress and what's the background there.
So have you got a notepad by the side of your bed? Because the one thing that kind of intimidates me about stuff like that, which I love these kinds of games, it's a bit like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which is a board game, is I have to have a notepad to keep a record of where I am so I don't lose the thread of it, particularly when you're talking about all these possible different branching paths. Are you able to hold it all in your head, or does the game facilitate your ability to keep a record of your observations, say, for example, or where your head is at currently in trying to solve this mystery?
There's not really kind of an opportunity to kind of make notes and stuff. I don't have a notepad or anything like that. I'm not doing it. What it does have is certain filters that enable you to organize the clips, because when you watch a clip, it gets dropped onto basically a massive board.
Right.
Of say, I'll be up to like 50 or 60 clips by now, which are all just mixed up because of how you found them. But there's a button that says, okay, well, if you press this, we'll organize it by date.
Great. Okay.
So I can do that, and they organize by date. So they do have some controls around that. But it is like, imagine yourself sat there with boxes of film, and that's kind of how the game is. It's just sat there, and you're able to just skip between the few of them and look at different things. And the kind of the camera work's really good. The kind of the visuals of it are really good. Like the way they have kind of affected the camera lenses look really good. They look of the time period that they are in. And I say just the quantity of content. Like I know I will get to the end of this game. I don't know. My wife said to me, like, how will we know? How's the game going to tell us that we're done? I was like, I have no idea. Like, I have no idea, because I know there will also be things that I will never see in this game. It's one of those games where you know I'm not going to see everything.
Yeah.
Because you can click onto anything. Like I will click on a picture in the background of a painting, and then it will take me to another painting in a different scene, and then I'm going to watch that scene, and it will only drop me in the middle of that scene. So if I want to see the full thing, I have to rewind all the way to the start and all that kind of thing. And you do find yourself watching a scene and then pausing and maybe just scrolling back a few frames because there's a certain look as someone's turned away with a little look in their eye. You're like, ooh, that looks suspicious. I'll dig into this person and see what's their game. I've never played a game like this. I've not played any of his old stuff in terms of like Her Story and Telling Lies and that stuff.
I mean, what I loved about Her Story was it gives you that wonderful feeling that's really satisfying when you watch like a whodunit mystery or crime drama or a procedural drama where the detective's there and they're going through like film footage of maybe it's a suspect in the interrogation room or it's documentation of something, and then like they pause and they go, hang on, what? And the camera zooms in and there's that realization. That's what kind of Her Story gives you. And you're like, oh, I feel really clever now because the game is as smart as I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
I reckon it's not as perhaps the production values aren't as high, and it's not as kind of there's a sense of being the archivist, but it's not kind of like that kind of a mystery. But like one of my top 10 games of all time is Return to the Obra Dinn by Lucas Pope, where I've spoken about it on the pod, so I don't want to go over it in too much here, but it gives you that sensation of, okay, I know people have died or disappeared on this ship, I need to find out who it was. And you feel really clever when you're able to kind of see these little frozen images as you walk around the ship going, okay, well, hang on, you spoke German. There's nobody on the ship's roster who's German, but there is somebody from Austria. So I reckon it's you. And there's like 100 crew members, and you've got to try and find out who's who, how they died, and if somebody killed them, who was it? And you feel so clever going back and forth, a bit like Immortality, for this non-linear arrangement of moments, piecing it together and completing this rostra.
Yeah, like what the points you make there, like there are absolutely moments in Immortality just like that, where something has happened and you say, well, okay, well, in order for me to find out why that happened, I'm going to retrace through say this person was involved, so I'm going to retrace this person back a scene. Okay, what else? Have they done anything else suspicious? Perhaps they're behind something else. But what's actually quite interesting is the fact of, if I didn't read the synopsis for this film, really, I call it a film because it feels like it's you feel like you're actually it feels like they've actually made 3 films. If you actually go into IMDb, you can find the 3 films.
That's amazing.
Like they are. I mean, admittedly, they're all kind of made in 2022 as opposed to 1968, 1970, and 99.
But there's a mythos, the kind of like engineering here, isn't it?
Because that's to kind of talk about this, I looked at like who the actress is who plays Marissa Marcel, and that's an actress played Manon Gage. So I thought, well, what else has she done? And I looked on there, and like in her credits is Ambrosio, Minsky, and Two of Everything, which are the 3 films. I was like, that's really cool. It's silly, but it's really cool that it's on there. I've been waiting for so long for this, and it's a fascinating game to play. It really is. Is it too late to sing the tuna bus? Because I feel like that's a staple part of every time we do a two-hander. I don't think we've actually ever done a two-hander before.
Not you and I, Dan.
I've done one with Pete before because we just got giddy and started laughing because we thought we were like kids when the teacher's off school.
No, I was a bit too anxious. I was wondering what it's going to be like for you and I, being in a recording, the 2 alphas of the group.
Indeed.
But I think it's gone okay, actually. So I'm on a website that is called Tropical Fish Magazine, and it says goldfish myths debunked.
A goldfish won't grow to the size of a bathtub in a day.
Well, there's like 11 different myths on here. I'm not going to read them all. But myth number 2, goldfish only grow to the size of their enclosure. They say there is an element of truth to this, but it is not as innocent as it sounds and is related more to water quality than tank size. So when properly cared for, goldfish will not stop growing. I'm pretty sure they will stop growing.
I'm pretty sure. Like if you feed them every day, they will eventually start growing.
Yeah. Most fishes are in fact what are known as indeterminate growers. This means that unlike humans, they grow until they die. Blooming hells, that is critical mass. What really stunts a fish's growth is poor water quality and improper care. In smaller aquariums or bowls, water quality is typically very poor. So actually it's about the quality of the water, not the size of the tank. So that lake in France, so it can't be next to a nuclear power plant. It must be Evian spring water, I imagine.
Yeah. If anyone else has any fish facts for us, it's a new feature on the show.
Hopefully, listener, Dan and I have been sufficient enough for you.
We apologise for not offering you the full staying in experience.
Because I know just the half experience, the diet version.
Yeah.
Because I know what's going to happen if there's a dip in number of listens. That'll be Pete and Sam's excuse to say, "Look, you 2 are the weak links."
Yeah, they will.
You 2 are holding us back.
Yeah. So hang on. So if you could all tell like 5 people to watch, if we can get a real big spike, then we could ask for more money or just money.
Yeah, I mean, tell a friend is generally the best thing, but only tell them if you like it. Don't be mean and say, oh, yes, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. But yeah, if you like it.
Yeah, that would be mean. And then don't tell us that.
Thank you for those who have been getting in touch. We had a listener contact us the other day, actually, recommending a fantastic, I think it's kind of like a social deduction game, but like on a massive scale. Called Blood on the Clock Tower. It's the game.
That's the one.
And I had heard of it, and I see it kind of being played at like conventions and things, but I've not actually played it yet. Thank you at Teskey for pointing us in the direction of that, because I'm totally going to be up for that, because they were saying, well, actually, you can play it online. There are people who play it online together, which I think I hadn't even thought about. But yeah, of course, that's a great way to play that game. And it's like this gigantic, bonkers social deduction game. So thanks for getting in touch with that. And they got in touch with us via Twitter.
Yeah, and if anyone kind of has any like recommendations and stuff, we'd love to hear them, because like we don't hear about all the games. So if you have something that's really worked for you and you really enjoy playing, please let us know so we can hop on that.
Particularly if you play it just before bed. Because that's a sweet spot right now. Yeah,
because that, as we've discovered, that's our sweet gaming time, just before falling unconscious.
So at Staying in Pod, so that is our handle, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, the Insta, which I think is probably our most popular, most active feed.
Yeah.
Primarily thanks to my boy Sam, who's been doing sterling work there on the gram. Sam actually included a lovely picture of him and I playing a fantastic game called Lacrimosa, which he'll no doubt talk about in the future, from Devir Games, which was this incredible game that is trying to piece together unfinished compositions of Mozart, imagining a world in which people try and club together to do that. It's an amazing game. It's not what I expected at all. Like, it's... the ambition of that and the gutsiness of it is just seminal, and it is a beautiful package. And what a wonderful and really interesting theme.
Well, there's a tease for a future episode.
Excellent, yeah. I wouldn't. Sam's probably playing it right now before he goes to bed, I imagine. He's got it all set up on the bed, ready to play. So yes, so we're going to stop rabbiting on for the moment now, but join us in 2 weeks' time, where we'll have all of us here unwrapping gifts, and it'll be there to celebrate our Christmas together, really, albeit virtually, and we want you to be a part of that.
Yeah. So until then, goodbye.
All right then.